Chills ran through my spine while I stared at the black Aston Martin in horror. As to why I feel this way, I don't know, but it seems like I could feel Porter's dagger looks from here. It's as if I could already imagine his intimidating eyes staring at me, and I just want to run away from him and never come back. "Are you okay?" Jasper asked me when he noticed I was already zoning out. I immediately turned to him and smiled. "Yeah," I said as I tried to call the crew so I could just get my cakes to go. Jasper looked so confused as he watched what I was doing. "Are you leaving already?" I nodded and smiled weakly. "I need to be somewhere," I told him as I started to fix my things. He nodded at me, but it seemed like he is still unconvinced. Not that I care what his opinion is right now because I even barely know him. All I am thinking is how Porter is feeling. And I don't really like it when he's jealous. No, he is not jealous. Why would he be jealous? I bit my lip and tapped my fingers on the table. On why I asked for the cake to go. I don't remember, but I can't leave them all now that I even asked the staff to do it. I let out a deep breath when I saw the girl walking towards our table with a paper bag. "Here are your cakes, ma'am." She smiled as she handed me the paper bag. I took it and muttered my thanks before facing Jasper. He's not eating. Instead, he's watching me and probably wondering why I suddenly decided to leave when I generously offered the table to him. "I'll see you around school," I told him and got up, preparing to leave. I stopped when I saw Porter out of his car and talking to a tall woman who seems to be from our university as well. He's smiling and chuckling, and the girl is obviously mesmerized by him. I narrowed my eyes at them and clenched my jaw and fists. "What's happening?" Jasper asked me when I wasn't moving. "Oh," he mumbled when I think he looked to where I was looking. I turned to Jasper and smiled. "I'm going," he nodded, and then I left the restaurant. My heart is starting to beat loud and fast because of my rising anger. Why is he talking to her? Why is he talking to her like he is amused in everything she is saying? Damn! I rolled my eyes and hailed a cab, not wanting for Porter to see me, but he did. However, he was already too late because I was already inside the cab and it was already moving. "Folktown Village," I told the driver and he nodded. I was already seething in anger inside the cab, but I was so shocked when I saw Porter in front of the moving car, in the middle of the road, with arms spread and a raging expression. "Stop!" he yelled at the driver. "Shh!" I mumbled as the driver looked at me. Porter was already walking to my side of the car and knocked on the window. The driver narrowed his eyes at me. "Do you know this guy?" he asked. I shook my head as a lie. "No, let's go, sir." "Gracila!" Porter yelled from the side of the car. I took a deep breath and tried my hardest to not look at him. I kept my stare forward and ignored him as much as I could. The driver was not driving fast enough. In fact, he is driving like I could run even faster than this damn car, because Porter can keep up. "Miss, I think you know him. Is he your boyfriend?" the driver asked while looking at me through the rearview mirror. I looked at him as scandalized as I could. "No, he's not my boyfriend." The driver shrugged and continued to drive at turtle speed. "I think you should talk to him. He keeps banging my window. If he continues that and my window breaks, I am going to charge you twice the repair." I gave him a look. "What?" "Gracila, calm down and let's talk." Porter was still yelling outside. The driver just shrugged. "Lovers quarrel?" I gave him a sharp look before turning towards Porter finally. "Fine, stop this car," I said as I got my bag, got some cash out and gave it to this annoying cab driver. I even got the paper bag with my cakes and gave it to him. The driver stopped and I got out. Porter looked at me, angry and dangerous. He held my wrist and pulled me towards him. "Let's talk," he hissed like acid. He pulled me towards his car, never letting go of my wrist. Damn, he is so mad right now. But hell, I am mad at him too. How dare he speak to that woman like that? Fuck. I shut my eyes as I was inside his car. I took a deep breath and calmed myself. Why am I feeling like this anyway? I seem like a jealous girlfriend. Well, I'm not jealous and I'm definitely not girlfriend. I should stop this. I could hear Porter's heavy sighs while driving silently. I glanced at him only to be greeted by his clenched jaw and furrowed brows while he is driving seriously. Even with his dark expression, he is still so handsome. My eyes went down to his shoulder, then to his arm. His hands was on the gear stick and I could clearly see his arm muscle moves as he flawlessly moves. I gulp and look away. This is not the right time to adore his perfectly formed muscles. I am mad and I don't even know why I am mad. I should not be mad. I should have acted like that. What is he thinking when I was throwing a fucking fit just because I saw him flirting with someone? I shouldn't have done that. I have no right to do that. I mentally killed myself for the embarrassing fit. Damn, how many times do I have to shame myself in front of Porter Dunn? I feel like I've been shamed so many times that I think I already have my fill for a lifetime. Porter pulled over a familiar building. I straightened on my seat as he entered the parking lot of the residential building. He removed his seatbelts and so I did too. He didn't speak. Instead, he got out and walked towards my side. He opened the door and assisted me out. He immediately grabbed my wrist and used the penthouse elevator just before the entrance. I bit my lip while we were going up the building. I am giving him side looks but he is just staring straight ahead. My heart is suddenly beating so fast. A sick feeling came in my stomach as the doors opened and he pulled me behind him towards our unit. He scanned the key card so fast, pulled me in and locked the door immediately. I thought he was going to let me go but he didn't. We stopped in the middle of the living and dining room. He slowly faced me but he is still not speaking. I swallowed so hard when his intense gaze met mine. His brows are furrowed and his jaw is clenched tightly while he looked at me like he could never get any angrier. His chest heaved and suddenly, I was nervous. What is he going to do? What is he going to say? Endless questions flooded my mind as I stared at him. He mumbled and shut his eyes forcefully as he faced down. He looked conflicted and mad and confused, that I felt a pang of pain pass by my chest as I looked at him. He took a deep breath and pulled me close to him in a tight embrace. My eyes widened at his sudden move as I hear him sighing so hard several times. "Porter," I called but he tightened his embrace even more. "I miss you so much," he whispered. Suddenly, I felt like a warm hand touched my heart. Tears began to fall in the sides of my eyes for no reason. Or maybe I know the reason, I just don't want to accept it. I swallowed hard, a huge lump, and buried my face on his chest. Just a few minutes ago, I was wondering what would happen. Maybe he'd shout at me. Maybe we'll fight with each other. But right now, having him hug me this tight, my emotions have taken over. Porter kissed my temple. "Don't go ignoring me again," My eyes widened at his words. Porter, you've been making excuses just so you couldn't be with me since your school began. I hate it. I don't like missing you this much. It's killing me. My lips parted at what he just said. My heart was already beating erratically and incredibly loud that I could feel it against my ribcage. Porter loosened his hug and looked at me. His eyes are staring at me like I am the only thing in this world that he cares about. Unlike his rugged and intense a while back because of his anger. His stare now is affectionate and tender. Baby, why were you ignoring me? His voice sounded really offended and hurt. I bit my lip. There is no way I am going to tell him the real reason. I am not going to blurt it out. Not when he's not telling me he's feeling the same. Not when he's not giving me enough reasons to admit it to him. I was busy, I replied and looked down. But Porter placed his index finger under my chin and lifted it just so I could face him again. Just so I could get lost inside his majestic stare again. I wanna be with you, he said in a tone void of any humor. He was dead serious. I gasped at what he said, disbelieving where this conversation is going. My heart was in a chaos but this time, I feel like I am losing my senses on my knees. What? I was almost breathless as I uttered that word. I cannot believe this. No, never in my lifetime will I believe this is happening to me right now. Porter looked at me sternly. His lips are pressed in a grim line. Date me. Exclusively. My eyes widened as my knees gave up on me. I held onto his arms for support. I removed my stare at him. No, I couldn't stare at him now. I couldn't look at him now. Not when my system is betraying me. Not when my sanity has officially left me. Gracila, are you okay? He asked me in a worried tone as he assisted me towards the couch. He helped me sit down and he knelt in front of me. I looked my fingers, which are still intertwined with his. He carries the back of my palm with his thumb. I bit my lip as I slowly looked to face him. Am I too fast? He asked carefully. I wet my lower lip before pursing my lips in a thin line. If we date exclusively, I paused because I couldn't believe I am stalling in front of him. I took a deep breath. Does that mean you'll be my girlfriend? He said as if finishing what I wanted to say. My lips parted and I could feel his grip on me tightened. His eyes are saying 1,000 words and nothing at the same time. Why is that? What about the contract? I asked. He narrowed his eyes at me. Dissolve. I bit my lip. If you're my girlfriend, I will hold your hand in public, hug you in public, kiss you in public, he said as his eyes bore into me. If you're my girlfriend, I will do everything to make you happy and contented. I will try my best not to disappoint you. My heart drummed loudly against my chest. Porter reached for my cheek and caressed it. Do you like that, baby? He whispered. Do you want to be my girlfriend? I gasped softly and then bit my lip. I swallowed hard before slowly nodding. Damn it, we've more times than I can remember, and I like him. There's no question I would want to be his girlfriend. He pulled my face and connected our foreheads. A smile appeared on his lips. Good, because I don't like feeling jealous when I know I don't have the right. I lifted my face and cupped his cheek before leaning down, connecting our lips in a deep, long kiss. This is actually good, Porter commented as he read the paper I did. I raised my brow as I sat in front of him across the bar. We are still inside our unit hours after I agreed to be his girlfriend. Since then, we've been making out non-stop until I succumbed to the idea of him checking my paper out. Porter smirked at me as he licked his lower lip. His eyes are on me, eyeing that spot on my neck where a hickey is noticeable. I narrowed my eyes at him as my eyes immediately flew to cover my neck. Porter laughed at my move. My girlfriend is cute. Blood rushed to my face as I heard him call me that. I have never been called that simply because I have not had a boyfriend before. I thought boyfriends are only for the women in the books. Being in a relationship hasn't even crossed my mind until these past few months. He chuckled at my expression. "Do you want me to print this one?" he asked. I frowned at him. I doubt it was good enough. Porter looked at me in disbelief. He stood up and walked over to my side. I lifted my face to look at him as he held my waist and made my body face him. He parted my legs and inserted his body in between. My hands are on either side of his waist as he looked down at me. His eyes bored into mine as one of his hands went up to my face. "I don't really understand why you seem to always underestimate yourself," he whispered. I stared back at him as I feel an overwhelming feeling in my chest. Porter may not always be expressive, but he definitely sweeps me off of my feet whenever he says the words that I needed. He caressed my cheek while his eyes softened. "You are amazing. Don't you know that?" I bit my lip to hide a smile about to flash from my lips. His grace, his thumb against my lips. "And I'm going to tell you that every single day," he said before dipping down to give me a deep kiss. I closed my eyes as I savored his lips on mine. We have kissed more times than I could count, but the kisses we have shared for the last few hours and up to now were the only ones that I have enjoyed the most. He moaned against my lips and smiled. "If we don't stop this, we might end up in a bed tonight naked." I giggled. "Don't you like that?" I asked in a whisper. He raised his brow and the sides of his lips rose. "Oh baby, you don't know how much I am craving for you." He tucked some loose strands of my hair behind my ear. "But then if I do you now, you will get so sore tomorrow morning. You won't get to class on time." I stared at him and can see his playful smile. "But I miss you." I almost couldn't recognize my voice. "It's too sweet." Porter's stare darkened and his grip on my waist tightened. "Don't." I hummed and ran my hand on his huge bulge that I can feel on my stomach. "Are you sure?" I heard him groan in frustration. "Baby, you're really putting me on the edge now." I looked at him and can see his eyes closed forcefully while his jaw is clenched to perfection. I rubbed my palm against his erection. I am so damn turned on right now that all I can think about is him and me in bed, naked and panting in pleasure and delight. I used to hate thinking about these things when I know I am not in an exclusive relationship with him, but now that we are in a relationship, I am fine with all these thoughts. "You're so hard," I gasped and moaned, wishing that those would be able to change his mind about this. I could almost feel happiness when I saw his Adam's apple move up and down like this is already a struggle for him. "Still no?" I asked him. "No," more like teased him. He faced the ceiling and grunted before pulling my face towards him and kissed me hungrily. He bit my lower lip and thrusted his tongue inside my mouth, making me moan against his kisses. He tilted his head to the side and kissed me in all angles. He cupped my breast and I could feel my tip erecting against the cloth of my brassiere. I gasped as I feel his lips on my jaw, down to my neck. "This is what you do to me," he whispered as he sucked that same spot in my neck. I whimpered. Take my clothes off. He grunted and like a mad beast, ripped my clothes, including my brassiere, throwing them all on the floor. He crouched and captured my sucking it like a hungry baby. I moaned out loud when I saw how he's latching perfectly on my erected tip. God, Porter! I wailed as my fingers feasted on his hair. His calloused palms kneaded my breast, massaging them and pinching my other. I straddled him and rubbed my hot core against his jean-clad erection. He hummed as he went on to the same thing on my other breast. Moans and groans were all that can be heard inside. Is up in the air and all I could feel is lust and carnal desire. Porter then carried me to the bedroom and laid me carefully on the bed. He kissed me tenderly while his hand went in my inner thigh, slowly caressing me until he reached my heated core. "Shit," he mumbled. "You're so wet, baby." I grunted and ordered him to remove my pants and panties in a blink. The moment I felt his fingers flicking against my swollen body, I already lost my mind. "Oh God, Porter," I moaned as he continued rubbing my clit. His face is buried on my neck and licking and kissing and sucking it like he's so fascinated about it. He cursed as he watched me so turned on and needy, hot and ready for him. He got up and removed his pants and boxers in a heartbeat before spreading my legs wide. He positioned his fully erected member in the middle of my thigh, slightly rubbing it against my entrance. He anchored his huge and fully built arms under my legs as he slowly entered me. "God, you feel so good, Graciela," whispered me as he kissed my cheek. I gasped when I felt him filling me to the brim. I feel so stretched and full. He stayed there and didn't move for a moment before he pulled out, leaving me lonely. I almost grunted at what he did, but then he slammed inside me in one shot. "Ah," I gasped. "Please," I said as my nails buried on his back. I moved against his hips, trying to mimic the way he does to me. Porter groaned as he kissed me before starting to move in and out of me. I shut my eyes and concentrated on his length moving inside me, hitting my sensitive spot. "Faster," I whispered. "Porter, faster," I pleaded. Porter groaned and pulled me on the edge of the bed before plunging in and out of me like a hungry beast. I could feel the bed moving together with our rhythm. "Shit," he cursed as he looked like he is about to explode like me. A familiar feeling in my gut resurfaced as we both neared our climax. I met his thrust until I was already screaming Porter's name. Porter convulsed and I felt him exploding inside me before collapsing beside me. He immediately wrapped his arms around me and pulled me into a tight hug. "You're mine, Graciela. Only mine." I woke up in the middle of the night to my grumbling stomach. Porter is fast asleep as his hand is wrapped around my waist. I stared at him and started to admire his features. He looked so peaceful and kind when sleeping, very different from the Porter who always gives me intense gazes. I reached for his face and caressed his cheek. His brows furrowed as he slowly opened his eyes. He smiled widely and planted a kiss on top of my head when he saw me awake and looking at him. "What time is it?" he asked in a raspy voice. "1 in the morning, I think," I replied against his chest. He poured. I chuckled and hugged him. "I'm hungry," I told him. He looked at me. "What do you want to eat?" I bit my lip and thought of what I want to eat before grinning at him widely. "Pizza." He chuckled before hugging me closer and planting a kiss on my head. "Okay, baby, let's get changed." I narrowed my eyes at him. Why do we need to change? We can just order a delivery. He raised his brow at me. You're my girlfriend now. I want to date you outside our unit because that's what you deserve. I froze for a moment and felt my heart swelling with what he just said. A smile slowly crept out of my lips before I lifted my head and pressed my lips against his. Thank you, Porter. He bit my lower lip. Everything for you, Gracila. We spent about 50 minutes getting changed because he couldn't keep his hands off of me. He keeps on touching me and we would end up making out once more. He's too needy, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. Porter held my hand and laced his fingers with mine as we walked towards the pizza restaurant in downtown. There are a few people inside, which gives us a lot of choices on where to sit. Porter ordered while I waited in the table beside the glass wall. There are not many cars in the street, so all I could watch are the birds frolicking under the brightness of the street light. What time is your class again? Porter asked when he sat beside me. He immediately wrapped his arm around my waist and pulled me closer to him. I glanced at him. 10, I replied, but I could skip it. Why would you skip it? He asked. I shrugged. Maybe you want to do something, I teased. He hummed against my earlobe. Why, baby? Do you want me to take you again when we get back? Aren't you sore? I blushed instantly as I felt myself melting in his touch. But then a familiar heat rushed through my system as I heard his seductive voice. I gulped and calmed myself so hard. I looked at him and saw him looking at me with a huge smirk. I hate you, I muttered. He laughed and shook his head. Too bad. You can't break up with me when you only just become my girl, he told me. I pursed my lips in a thin line. You think? He raised his brow. No, baby, I know. I scoffed at his overconfidence. Too confident, too honest, too arrogant. He chuckled and leaned closer to my ear. To yours, he mumbled before the waiter came with our order. And damn it, I am blushing like a ripe tomato. You, Porter Dunn. Porter drove me to school. As a matter of fact, he also cooked me breakfast. He even printed my paper and I was so surprised when I saw it on the breakfast table, enclosed in a white folder. I was all smiles as I walked inside the campus. I have never felt this way before. I feel so light that I feel like I am walking in the air. Hey, I heard Jasper's voice. He's walking towards me with books in his hands. I smiled back at him. Hello, I told him, and then I remembered what happened in the cafe last night. I'm sorry about last night, I said. Jasper stared at me intently before shrugging. No biggie, Gracila. I smiled wider. Are you on your way to class? I asked. Yes, I just bought a folder for my paper. I nodded. Are you done? He asked. I smiled and nodded. Yes, I finished it in the library yesterday. His eyes widened and lips parted slightly. Wow, you did all that in the library? He asked in awe and disbelief. I chuckled at his reaction. Yes, I kind of forced myself to finish it so I could sleep more, which I couldn't do because Porter has been all over my body all night. Even after we eat out, he couldn't stop. He's just too addicted and addictive at the same time. That's good for you, he said as we walked to class together. I'm not gonna lie, I am sore. Porter has been asking me that since this morning and I have been denying it. But then again, I am sore. I could feel him inside me with every move I make. And it's crazy because this isn't the first time that we had all night. But the soreness is definitely not the same, but it's a good kind of sore. Classes ended quickly and I received a message from Porter reminding me that he will fetch me so we could go to the office together. However, I received a more important message from my cousin Elliot. I won't ask you where you were last night, but I think I need to know. My eyes widened and I trembled as I read his message. I could feel his terror aura radiating from the screen of my phone. Elliot is not usually chill when it comes to things like this, but it is different now. To Elliot, I'm going to explain later. I have to deal with him, but I would need time to think of how I would break it to him. Knowing Elliot, he's going to flip once he knew I am in a relationship with Porter Dunn. He never liked that man in the first place. From Elliot, I'll get you from school. Are you done? I gulped. Is he about to come now? To Elliot, okay, I'll wait for you. And then you need to drive me to the company. I have a meeting at 4 p.m. From Elliot, done, I'm on my way. I took a deep breath and walked towards the main gate as I typed a message to Porter. You can't fetch me now. Elliot is going to talk to me. I'll just see you in the office. From Porter, okay, I'll see you. I smiled upon reading his message and kept my phone inside my bag. I waited for a few more minutes before I saw Elliot's black SUV stop in front of me. He rolled the window to the passenger side and looked at me with narrowed eyes. Come in, he ordered and pushed the door open. I hopped in quickly before we pulled up. I fastened my seatbelt and looked at him, who has his eyes on the road. Elliot, I'm sorry about last night. My cousin raised his brow and looked at me quickly. Well, it first, Grace. I also have something to tell you. I narrowed my eyes at him. He seemed bothered but not really mad, and with the tone of his voice, I think he is not exactly entirely pissed off that I didn't come home last night. There's something else. There's something wrong. Are you okay? I asked him. He furrowed his brow and clenched his jaw. I can also notice how his grip on the steering wheel tightened. No, and after this, I don't think if you will be okay too. My eyes widened in shock and my heart beat loud. Fear seemed to be overpowered by anxiety. What is he talking about? I am having goosebumps as I tried to guess what he is about to say. I want to keep my head out of it but I can't seem to. And that's what I have been doing for most of the duration of the time that I am inside his car. When Elliot pulled over a Chinese restaurant, my heart seemed to beat even faster and louder. The receptionist walked to us and immediately assisted us at a table nearly secluded from all the people. Elliot pulled a chair for me and I sat. He sat across me and ordered food for the both of us. His thick brows are narrowed as he looked at me. His lips are pressed into a thin line, as if seemed to think of how to start a conversation. I cleared my throat. What are you going to tell me? I asked in all my might. He leaned on the table. I wanna know where you were first last night. I was with Porter. He raised his brow at me. He slowly leaned back on the backrest of the chair as he kept his head to the side. And what are you doing with him all night? The protectiveness in his voice cannot be concealed. I swallowed hard. I looked down and fiddled on my fingers. What now, Graciela? Chickening out once more, huh? Graciela, his voice full of authority. I lifted my face and looked at him, still uncertain as to how I am going to tell him. He raised his brow. Are you dating him? My eyes widened and my whole body seemed to stiffen. You are? Elliot asked. I bit my lip and nodded slowly. There's no point denying it anyway. Sometimes in the next coming days, I would have to tell him, so it's better if I tell him now. Exclusively? He probed. I glared at him and he just shrugged. I know him, Gracila. He's a playboy. He's ruthless. So, forgive me if I am so protective of you. You are an angel while he is the king of the underworld. He's not, I retaliated, defending Porter. Elliot smirked. Oh yeah, I just hope he changed his ways because I am really going to beat the out of him if he hurts you. I frowned at him but my heart swelled at my cousin's words. I have never had a close guy in my life, just Elliot, because he is my cousin, and he is also like my big brother. We may not agree most of the time, but I believe that he only wants to the best for me. Our order came and we started eating. I have been itching on asking him what he would say, but he is eating so slowly like he's savoring every flavor of the xiaolongbao. So, I ate and waited until he would be the one to initiate the start of discussion. Somehow, I am slightly relieved that he didn't scrutinize my relationship with Porter thoroughly. Or maybe he just didn't care about it that much because the weight of his news is on a whole lot of different level. He was almost done when he cleared his throat. He wiped his lips with the table napkin and looked at me seriously. My heart started to pick up its pace. I am so nervous of what he is going to tell me. I am so nervous that it would be about what I dreaded but wanted the most. The investigator called me this morning. Elliot started. I knew it was about this. Elliot wouldn't be this serious if it wasn't about my parents' ambush. He pursed his lips in a thin line before continuing. He said he found a strong lead. He paused and looked at me. I narrowed my eyes at him. And what? I probed. He told me that we have to be careful. The mastermind could be in the board of directors of Grayson Air. I dropped my chopstick on the table. Elliot clenched his jaw as he saw my reaction. Pain and anger filled my chest. The prime suspect is inside the company? Betrayal is all I could feel right now. After everything that my parents did for the company, a board member is suspected to be the mastermind of the ambush? It. Tears pulled in my eyes as thoughts flooded my brain. I have a meeting with the whole board later on, and knowing this now, how am I going to face them? This is going to be hard without me being indifferent to everyone. I already asked the investigators to dig even deeper. I want to see the end of this, Elliot said. I bit my lip and nodded. Me too, Elliot sighed. I also hired more bodyguards for you. If the suspect is in the building where you're working, then all the more that we need to tighten your security, he said, void of emotion and humor. I already had enough deaths around me. I can't handle if you would get hurt. I frowned at him. He knows how much I hated the bodyguards, but right now, I will have to agree with him. You also should have more bodyguards, I told him. He nodded. I know. I have added, even at home, he replied. I want you to be careful, alright? Don't trust anyone, not even your Porter Dunn. I looked at him and bit my lip. Porter is a board member before I appointed him as a CEO, and that makes him a suspect too. But then, I am going to give them all a benefit of the doubt. Deep inside, I am praying that the investigators are mistaken because I can't imagine Porter or any of the board members being a suspect. I hope not. I pray not. Elliot's words remained in my head while I was walking towards the conference room. I'm late, and that's because I spent a good 15 minutes in my office thinking of what to do. The prime suspect could be in the board of directors. It could be one of them. I shut my eyes as I tried to calm my mind. If the suspect is indeed in the members of the board, then I need to have a wider range of thinking. For sure, if that person wanted to kill my parents, he or she would also want to kill me too. Miss Fuller, here are your notes for the meeting. Ingrid told me. I stood in front of the door for a while. I don't know. 30 seconds? Ingrid was beside me and she's probably wondering what I am doing staring at the stupid door for 30 seconds when I am already late for the meeting. I looked at her and then at the folder she's handing me. I smiled curtly. Thank you. I took a deep breath before pushing the double doors open. I looked at the room full of monstrous business-minded. They are all complete and they all looked at me like they are relieved that I have arrived. Finally, my eyes darted to Porter, who is staring at me with furrowed brows. He motioned the seat beside him and I nodded. I walked to him and sat beside him. I'm sorry I'm late, I told them. I had other things to do. They all nodded at me and told me that school must have been stressing me out lately. They all seemed relaxed and accommodating to me now. When I was new, almost all of them wanted to curse at me for not knowing a thing about business. I looked at Uncle Aris, who is looking at me. Are you alright? He asked in a worried tone. I smiled at him and nodded. Elliot said I shouldn't trust anyone in the board. Does that mean I don't have to trust Uncle Aris and Porter too? I shook all those thoughts away and nodded at Mr. First Bradley, who is about to present a proposal for the partnership of his hotel and resort business with our airline. Mr. Bradley stood up and took to the podium with his PowerPoint on. I have read his proposal several times and tried to apply the things I have learned in business school so far. I must say I am impressed, or maybe I am just that incompetent yet. He discussed about how his upcoming resort in California would boost the airline's digits. He said that tourists would be more interested in flying with us since he's building a luxurious country club with a helipad. He said that if we could provide him with some choppers, then that would be benefit not only his resort but also our airlines. Questions were asked and I never thought about any of them. Porter asked a lot of questions, especially. He was on his total business mode with his brows furrowed and eyes narrowed at the presentation. I was quiet in my seat as I tried to absorb what all of them are asking. I swallowed and almost cursed at myself for being not good enough. I have attended business school for several weeks now, but why can't I still do better? I am starting to get disappointed and frustrated at myself. Mr. Bradley was good, though. He answered all the questions smoothly. He is also very well versed in business talks. He even asked one of the board members to be the first customer of the country when it's finished in 6 months. No wonder though. He came from a prominent business family from New York. Uncle Aris looked at me and tilted his head to side. Do you have questions, Grace? I smiled and shook my head. I believe you all took the liberty to ask questions, I said. What I only want now, Mr. Bradley, is for more time for me to review this deal further. Say, a week. Mr. Bradley smiled and nodded. That would be okay, Miss Fuller. You can just email me your decision and I will be back here for the contract signing. I raised my brow. How confident he is to say that there will be a contract signing soon. But then I nodded and closed the folders in front of me. Well, if there are no further questions, meeting adjourned, I announced. Each of the board members stood up one by one and left the conference room after saying a few words with Mr. Bradley. Uncle Aris looked at Porter, who was not moving beside me. He just nodded and left too after patting Mr. Bradley's shoulder. Mr. Bradley looked at me and smiled. His stare is a bit intimidating, but there was more of a soft feature in him. Well, I guess each bachelor from the business world has that kind of aura. I stood up and shook hands with him. I'll email you soon. Mr. Bradley smiled. I'll wait for it, Miss Fuller. He let go of my hand. He looked behind me and nodded. I'll go ahead, Miss Fuller, Mr. Dunn, he said before leaving just me and Porter inside the conference room. I took a deep breath and plopped myself at a random chair. I laid my head on the backrest and shut my eyes. Would I feel this way every time I will be in a meeting? I feel scared. I feel mad. I feel disappointed at everyone, at myself. I hear the sound of the swivel chair being pulled, and then I felt my chair getting pulled. I immediately opened my eyes and saw Porter's face so close to mine. I stared back at him. He narrowed his eyes at me. Baby, what's the problem? He asked in a soft voice. He is now leaning on the armrest of my chair. I smiled and shook my head. On the way here, I have thought over and over again if I am going to tell Porter about my investigation with my parents' case. I don't think I have to, but there is a big part of me that wanted me to. On the other hand, I am still a little scared of, I don't know. I can't explain it. I feel like everything is mixed up. My parents' case, my self-doubt, my incompetency to lead this business. Everything is too complicated. Everything is too different from the life I used to live. I thought I have already accepted this fate, but I guess now I don't. I'm not yet sure if this is the wisest thing to do. You don't look okay to me, Porter said. You've been quiet the whole time. I rolled my eyes and tried to act normally. I am usually quiet, not when asked about your opinions. I looked at him and smiled weakly. I don't know. I looked into the proposal several times, but I haven't thought of the questions asked by the board members. I feel insufficient. Porter's eyes softened at what I said. He carries my cheek. That's understandable. You are new to this, Gracila. All the people in the board, they are all pioneers to business. They know all the lefts and rights, all the turns. He tried to console me. Don't think of yourself that way, baby, please. I bit my lip and smiled at him. His words somehow made me feel okay. Thank you, I told him. Thank you. I cupped his face and leaned in to give him a deep kiss. And I miss you. He looked at me with a raised brow. You miss me, huh? He asked in a teasing tone. Why is this the first time I have heard you tell me you miss me? When I tell you that you always look like you never believe me. My jaw dropped at what he just said. I glared at him and he just chuckled. He reached for my nape and pulled me into his arms. He hugged me tight as he kissed my hair. I thought there was a problem with us, he said in a soft voice. I looked at him in disbelief. What? He shrugged. You went to eat with your cousin, baby. I thought he knew about us and did not approve our relationship. I laughed at him. I broke the hug so I could look at his face. Are you scared of my cousin? I asked him. He rolled his eyes and looked away. Oh my God, the porter Alejandro Dunn, the dark horse in business, the ruthless, the heartless, is scared. Elliot would not approve him to be my boyfriend. I want to laugh so hard. Are you kidding me? I asked him in a disbelief. He looked at me, annoyed at my teasing. What? Of course, he's your family. He spoke like a child without a reason. So? I asked back. So? What do you mean so, Graciela Fowler? If he doesn't approve of our relationship, then that means he don't trust me with you. He rolled his eyes at me after explaining. Now, I am laughing at him, hard. Never in my life since I met Porter had I seen him act like this. He's usually cold and distant. He's always composed. But right now, he looks like he's losing and it's funny. He gave me another sharp look but that only made me laugh at him more. Now, he's glaring at me so I stopped. I cleared my throat and sat properly. I tried to show him my serious and he just raised his brow at me. He looked away, still annoyed at me laughing at him earlier. I took a deep breath and held his arm. Porter. I called him but he is not responding. His head is turned away from me and I could clearly see his jaw clenching from this angle. I bit my lip and slowly lifted my hand to reach his jaw. He flinched and looked at me. Don't be mad. I smiled sweetly at him. He narrowed his eyes at me more. Damn, I feel like we're a high school couple fighting over petty things. I never thought he'd be this childish. Elliot knows about us, I said, and he immediately pursed his lips. He is okay with it. Porter's eyes widened in shock. Really? I nodded and smiled. Well, technically, Elliot never said he wants for my relationship with Porter. He just told me he's going to beat the out of Porter if he hurt me. So I think that's his way of approving my relationship with Porter. Porter calmed down a bit. But if you hurt me, you'll get your beaten out by my cousin, I warned him. His lips parted for a moment before breaking into a wide grin. He suddenly pulled me towards him and engulfed me into his warm embrace. Warning noted, he whispered before kissing my dimple. I smiled and rolled my eyes. I will never hurt you, he whispered, and those are the words that I will hold on to. Porter and I were inseparable the past few weeks. He's been driving and picking me up from the university every single day without fail. He would even cancel meetings if those would hinder his time with me. Handling our business is difficult for me, but Porter makes it all bearable. He's always trying to help me understand different business deals. He's always there to support me. And above all, he helps me understand my lessons more. The past few weeks has been nice. It has been easier to the point that I don't have to sleep at 3 in the morning because I spent all night studying. I've never been this happy too. I have never imagined having a life like this. I am busy texting with Porter, who is in a meeting when Sheila sat in front of me. Her eyes are narrowed as if trying to tell me how disgusted she is with my wide smile. What? I asked as I kept my phone. She raised her brow. Texting your boyfriend? She asked. I've told him about Porter immediately and she seemed disappointed that I had given in to him. She did not criticize my decision that much and in the end, she said that she respects my decision and she hopes he won't hurt me like his other flings. But she also said he's still under her radar. He is still under probation. He's in a meeting. And you're texting? That's badass. She smirked and opened her book. I laughed and shook my head. We began to talk about the people around the cafeteria. She saw the man that has been pestering her in one of her minor classes. I narrowed my eyes when Sheila pointed at the man. Jasper? I asked. You know him? She asked in disgust. I nodded. We have a few classes together. She rolled her eyes. Oh yeah, I almost forgot he's majoring in business. Disgust is written all over her face and I could only laugh. Jasper is definitely a nice guy for me, and he's handsome too. So I wonder why Sheila seemed to be so annoyed at him. And then it dawned on me. Maybe he likes you. I shrugged. She glared at me before rolling her eyes. She seemed so angry and horrified at the idea. You're not serious, right? She asked. Now she's getting mad at me. I raised both of my hands in surrender. She looks like she would kill me if continued to tease her about Jasper. Sorry, I said, but seriously, I know him. He's nice. She rolled her eyes. Maybe he likes you. I narrowed my eyes at her and shook my head. I never let that get in my mind, and I think it's not like that. Men have the tendency to be rude to the woman they like, so he probably likes Sheila and not me. Not a chance, I said as I looked to where Jasper is right now. He's talking to a blonde who's all smiles at him. It is very obvious that she likes him, but he seems so nice to her, like he doesn't see the twinkle in her eyes as he talked to her. Who's that? I asked Sheila. Meredith, she replied. She's the class president. I nodded. Well, she looks sophisticated and responsible at the same time. She seems to be the type that men go for if they want a serious relationship. I looked away and turned to Sheila, who is still watching the two. Is she your friend? I asked her. She shook her head. As a matter of fact, she hates me. How can you say that? She keeps ignoring me and excluding me in the class group. She ranted. Last week, we had a special quiz in drafting and everyone in class knows about it except me, because she didn't include me in the group chat. What? Why would she do that? She rolled her eyes and shook her head. I don't know, but she hated me ever since the start of the semester. And now, I have to work harder because she has the power. I watched her as she narrated animatedly and angrily at the same time. She told me everything that Meredith did to her, and all I can do is wrinkle my nose in disgust. That's barbaric, I told her when she said that Meredith even told everyone in the block that Sheila dated a teacher. She sighed and shook head. She's evil. I looked at Meredith and sighed. It's true. You can never judge a person by appearance. Someone could be so pleasing on the outside but rotten on the inside. Just ignore her, I told Sheila. She rolled her eyes. What am I doing? Of course, I always try to ignore, but she always gets under my nose. She's sabotaging my studies, and that's what I hate the most. I sighed and tried everything I can to console my best friend. We spent minutes in the cafeteria before she told me that she has to go to her major class. It was fine with me since I am waiting for Porter to pick me up now. From Porter. I am here. I bit my lip and immediately stood up, running towards the main gate of the university where I saw Porter in a pickup truck. I narrowed my eyes at his car. He's already leaning on the hood of his car while flaunting his gray v-neck shirt and black cargo pants. I thought he was in a meeting. It's not as if he'll wear that in a meeting. Duh. I looked around and already saw some female students stopping in their tracks to give him a few seconds of glance. I shook my head and continued walking towards him. He instantly walked towards me when he saw me nearing him. He took my books I am hugging and planted a kiss on my forehead. I raised my brow at him and wanted to tease him, but a lot of girls are already looking at us, so I let him lead me towards his car. He swiftly kissed me on the lips before revving the engine. He was already grinning widely as he sexily leaned on the steering wheel. "Where's your Aston Martin?" I asked. "He's safe in the garage, baby," he told me. "Garage?" I uttered. I'm pretty sure he meant parking, but then he might have a house that I don't know of. All I know is the unit we shared for our hookups. I fixed myself on the shotgun seat and Porter started driving. He seemed to be in a good mood because he is smiling widely. "Are you okay?" I asked, weirded out at his grin. He nodded. "Okay?" "I thought you were in a meeting," I asked. He gave me a quick glance. I was. "Then why the casual get up?" I asked again. I really hate it when unanswered questions run inside my head sometimes. He looked at his clothes before nodding, as if it's only now that he knew he wasn't in corporate attire. "Ah, I brought this with me. I figured I need to change into casual clothes for me to feel more comfortable with our date." I froze, letting his words sink inside me, before looking at him with wide eyes. "What date?" I asked. "Are we going on a date?" I sounded so surprised and hysterical as those words got out of my mouth. I looked at my clothes. I look really normal. I don't think I have the outfit fitting for a date. "Are you serious?" I asked. He gave me a side glance before nodding. "We're going on a date, baby. Doesn't that even excite you?" My mouth flew open at what he just said. I am already panicking and he's talking to me sarcastically. "But I am wearing jeans," I protested. He raised his brow. "So?" he asked back. "I'm not wearing slacks either." I stopped and looked at him. He looked like a normal citizen too. I guess it's good that I am just wearing shirt and jeans. Besides, Porter spoke again. "All I ever care about is what's under those clothes." I gaped at what he said and hit his arm incessantly until he was begging me to stop. "Pervert," I called him out. He chuckled and shook his head. "You act like you don't moan out loud when we make love," he teased, but his words made me stop. "Make love?" I don't think I have ever heard him tell me that. I am so used to his dirty talks and telling me how he's going to me the way I thought beef, and somehow I have gotten used to it. But this, the feeling is new. "You're blushing," he said when the traffic light turned red. I looked away and rolled my eyes. I mentally cursed myself as to why I am blushing at those two words. But then again, this is my first ever relationship. Everything is new to me. So, I'm giving myself the first timer card. Porter took my hand and threaded his fingers with mine. I slowly looked at him and saw him crouching to kiss the back of my hand. He smiled at me. "I like making you blush," he uttered. My eyes widened and there, I figured out how red my face is right now. I pouted at him, making him chuckle lowly. "You're usually so beautiful and serene that I find it really fascinating when you show your cute side." I narrowed my eyes at him and tried to push his face away from mine, but he laughed out loud. I glared at him and shook my head. I hate and love this side of him. I hate it because he makes me feel uncomfortable and love it because it's a proof that he's not just dull and intense. Porter pulled me closer to him and cupped my face. Gracila, you are the best thing that has ever happened to me. So please, bear with me, he whispered in a soft voice, making my heart melt. I smiled and placed a kiss on his lips. You're too much to me, but I will always put up with you, I whispered back, and the traffic lights turned green. Go. I looked out the window and saw that we're going to a man-made forest. I looked at Porter, who seemed so sure of where we are heading. It's almost dark and I am getting really nervous about going inside a forest. It doesn't matter if it's man-made. Where are we going? I asked Porter. He gave me a side glance as the side of his lips rose. Date, he replied curtly. My eyes widened. Inside a forest? I asked, slightly hysterical. He chuckled lowly, which only earned him a glare from me. How could he date me in a man-made forest? This is so insane. I was about to protest a little more, but I saw how the scenery has changed from trees and darkness to a body of water, a beach. I straightened up on my seat and saw the orange sky meeting with the blue waters. What the? My jaw literally dropped. My eyes widened as I admired the whole view. I don't remember seeing a sunset as beautiful as this. Porter hummed as he slowly reached for my hand. Still upset over this date? He teased me and usually I would glare at him, but I couldn't take my eyes off the beautiful sunset. Porter kissed the back of my hand briefly before pulling over the shore. I looked at him and smiled as he saw him watching the sunset too. He turned to me and grinned. You like it? I smiled and nodded eagerly. It's wonderful. He chuckled. There's an even more wonderful thing, he said as he opened the door and got out. I watched him jog my side and opened my door. I removed my seatbelts and held his hand as I got out of the car. Porter closed the door and led me towards the shore, nearer to the beach. I smiled and inhaled the scent of salt water and sand. I never knew I'd be so relaxed near the beach. I haven't been around the beach so much that every time my parents and I came here, I'd stay sitting by the shore even in the heat of the sun. I threaded my fingers with Porter's and looked at him while we were walking down the shore. He's shielding the sun's rays and I smiled. This is more wonderful, indeed. He smiled and reached for my cheek. It's only wonderful because I am here with you. My lips parted at his words. Porter never really seemed to be the best person to speak, but most of the time, he speaks to me like he's from a book, so of poetic words, and more words that would give me irregular heartbeats. I tiptoed and kissed him on the lips, taking him by surprise. I smiled when I saw his eyes widen and jaw drop. Cute, I muttered as I pulled him to keep walking. To be honest, I never pegged Porter as someone who would want a date by the beach. He was always screaming of riches and luxury. He was never the type to be nature romantic. But this proved me wrong. I guess he has a lot of romantic ways in his system, and I am not even complaining. We walked and played with water. We're alone in the shore and we could do anything we want, literally anything. We got back to his car when it was already dim. I was a little surprised that he went straight to his trunk and got something out of it. My eyes widened when I saw him holding dark blue mat and slowly laid it on the sand. He looked at me and smirked. "You're probably hungry," he said as he went back to trunk only to come back with a huge basket on his hand. He laid the basket on the mat and held my hand, kissing the back of it. I narrowed my eyes at him, curious and shocked at what is happening in front of me. "What's this?" He raised his brow. "Dinner date," he smiled sheepishly. My jaw dropped and looked at the basket before looking back at him. "You prepared all this?" I asked in disbelief. He chuckled and pulled me into his arms. "Anything for my baby," he whispered, making me melt in his embrace. I wrapped my arms around his waist and hugged him tight. "Why are you so sweet?" I mumbled against his chest. He chuckled and kissed the top of my head. "Because that's what you deserve, baby. Sweet and tender love." "What?" I lifted my head and looked at him before both of us burst into laughter. "That's too much, I guess," he asked in between laughs. I nodded and laughed with him. "Don't be too sweet, Porter," I told him. He raised his brow. "You don't like me being sweet?" he probed. I shook my head. I like it. I like it all. To be honest," I trailed. "It's just that you being sweet is something that makes me severely overwhelmed." He cupped my face and entrapped me in his enticing stare. "Then you're doing the same thing to me even without doing anything." My lips parted. I don't know what to say to that, especially now that I am looking deep into his brown eyes. "I love you." I didn't know how I said it, but the words just came out of my mouth as if telling me that this is the right time to tell him. Porter's eyes widened. "You do?" he asked in disbelief. I nodded. His mouth slowly broke into a huge grin before dipping down to claim my lips. "I love you too, Graciela. I'm in love with you." His voice was soft and almost breathless as he uttered those words, and I could never be happier in my life. He slowly leaned closer and kissed me deep and tender. His kisses are slow, and I feel like he's taking all the time in the world. He tipped his head and kissed me in all angles. He dipped his tongue inside my mouth and carefully owned every corner of my small cavern. So this is how the characters in the romance books I've read felt when the one they love loves them back. But I don't think I could think of any word that could describe the feelings I am feeling now. I don't think there is a word that would give justice to my emotions. My whole body feels like I'm floating in the air, even though my heart feels so full and overwhelmed. But then, I still think this description isn't enough to give it justice. But I feel extremely happy. So happy that I think I could die. Porter broke the kiss and carries my cheek. "It's getting really dark. Wait for me here. Go and sit on the mat. I'll turn the headlights on," he said before planting a kiss on my forehead. I nodded and did as I was told. I kneeled on the mat and looked at what the basket has in store for us. I got some plates and utensils out and saw with 6 food storage of different sizes. I looked at Porter, who was already squatting on my side. "You really planned this, huh?" I teased him and he shrugged. He helped me open the storage. There was pasta, steak, rice, vegetables, pie, and assorted chips. He brought out a wine bottle inside the basket and I raised my brow. "Extremely prepared," I muttered as I took the wine flutes out. If there were candles, I would really applaud his romantic side. We ate a lot and we teased each other in between. We laughed and talked about anything. Moments like this, I feel like we are really like a normal couple. Just the thought of it makes me happy beyond anything. When we finished eating, we decided to lay down and stare at the night sky. There are a lot of stars tonight. I was lying on Porter's shoulder as his arms are wrapped around me. He would kiss me on the forehead and on my temple from time to time. Did you really want to be a businessman? I asked him. I felt him looking at me and shrugged. Yeah, I guess, he replied. Besides, I feel like this is my destiny. I narrowed my eyes at him. Your destiny? I asked. He nodded. I mean, it's all I've ever known since I was a kid. My cousins and I, we are all expected to follow the footsteps of our parents. We were all expected to take over the family businesses when we grow up. So, you never imagined yourself doing something else? He kissed my head. What do you mean, baby? I shrugged. I mean, you never thought of pursuing a different profession? Say, a doctor or engineer? Or a model? I asked. He chuckled and shook his head. I sighed, because I do. And I also grew up in the kind of environment that you grew up on. I started. My parents own a huge airline and everyone expected me to take over it when I grow up. But then, I never really wanted to take up a business course. I wanted to pursue art because it's been my passion since I was a kid. Many people got disappointed at me, though, but not my parents. They supported me at everything I want to do, and that was what made me pursue what I really wanted, what I was passionate about. My parents supported my decision, encouraged me even. So, when they died, I gulped, feeling tears at the sides of my eyes at the memory of my late parents. Everyone expected me to take over the company. But not only that, everyone knew that I would fail the company. I felt his body stiffen. His arms hugged me tighter. He looked at me and shook his head. His eyes are dark and seemed to be angry at me. Don't say that, he told me like a warning. Your parents wanted you to pursue what you want because that's what you should do. You should follow your heart. I smiled and nodded. Well, I sighed. It doesn't matter anymore now, though. I have taken a huge step to take over the business. Porter still stared at me intently. I reached for his face. I'm actually seeing the brighter side of things, Porter, I told him. If I didn't take over, I would have never met you. I almost couldn't recognize myself from what I am telling him. He clenched his jaw before cupping my jaw. Ah, a good thing out of it, huh? He smiled as he caressed my cheek. But then, I'd see to it that I will still end up with you even though you didn't take over your parents' company, he said as he dipped his head down and gave me a long, deep, and passionate kiss. I am so nervous that I could piss on my pants. I paced back and forth in front of my wardrobe, and I have been doing this for 30 minutes now. I am so anxious that I am even biting my nails now. I looked at my clothes hanging in front of me. I haven't worn most of them, and usually, I don't have to worry about my dresses to formal events, but tonight is an exception. Porter told me just hours ago that we are going to attend the birthday party of Sylvia Black, his aunt. Of course, I got mad at him because he only told me that today. Didn't he know that women need to time to glamour up when it comes to attending formal events? I shut my eyes and remembered what he told me. It doesn't matter, baby. You look great even with casual clothes on, he said as I was already hysterical in the shotgun seat. He was even laughing at my reaction. I sighed hard and shook my head. A series of knocks came at my door. "Graciela, something came for you," Linda said from the other side of the door. I rushed to the door and immediately opened it, revealing Linda holding a huge box on her hands. I immediately took it from her and ran to place it on my bed. Linda followed me inside and watched me unbox it. Linda gasped when she saw what's inside the box. My eyes literally went wide when I saw the shiny peach dress lined with diamonds. I slowly held it up and got immensely mesmerized by it. "It looks really elegant. That's a really good dress, Graciela," Linda told me from behind. I smiled and nodded as I continued to stare at the dress in front of me. But then, my eyes darted back to the box when I saw a small red envelope. I carefully placed the dress on my bed and picked up the envelope. Linda hummed. I looked at her and saw her raising her brow at me. "Elliot said you're dating that Porter Dunn." My lips parted for a moment. Elliot really likes to snitch on me to Linda. He always reports my daily activities to her. Linda looked at me intently. "I don't know how men are these days, Graciela, but please, if you can, don't give your all to him. At the end of the day, you lose when surrender everything to him without leaving some for yourself," she lectured. I couldn't do anything, so I just nodded. "I'll keep that in mind," I told her. Linda is my second mom. She's been with us even before I was born. She was Mom's most trusted person because Mom had Linda to be her handmaid since she turned 18. When I was born, Linda's obligations to Mom seemed to be transferred to me. Linda is very mother-like, strict, and caring at the same time. Well, it doubled when my parents died. But rather than being pissed off, I believe I am privileged to have her in my life, even if she's too protective sometimes. She pursed her lips in a thin line. "Don't let a guy break your heart," she said before leaving me in my room alone. I watched her as she closed my door and sighed. Ever since I started dating Porter, everyone was warning me. A part of me wants to think it is about Porter, but the more I listen to them, the more that I feel like more than they are concerned that Porter would hurt me. They are more concerned on me opening up too much to him, and they have a point on that. This is my first time to love a man. This is the first time that I felt being loved by man. I will make mistakes, but I believe everything will be worth it with Porter. I sighed and shook my head. I shouldn't be thinking about it now. I have a birthday party to attend to. I should be focused on how I would look presentable to Porter's family. I looked at the envelope on my hand and took the note out of it. "Baby, I obviously got you a dress, so please stop fretting on how you're unprepared. Like I said, you can wear casual clothes and you're still going to be the best woman in my eyes. I love you, Porter." I bit my lip and smiled at his note. He's just too unpredictable sometimes, but I am loving every bit of it. I walked down the stairs, still feeling so nervous. Elliot said that Porter is in the living room with him and it didn't help at all. But above anything, I am shocked that Elliot actually let Porter in. I had a feeling he never really liked Porter before, so it is a huge surprise for me. Elliot turned to me and raised his brow. Porter followed and I saw how his jaw literally dropped as he eyed me from head to foot. I am wearing the shiny peach dress he gave, which surprisingly fit me perfectly. It is a halter long dress with diamonds on the neckline and a high slit that would go above my mid-thigh. I partnered it with diamond earrings and silver strap pumps. My hair is in a side bun so as to accentuate the dress, neckline, and my earrings. I bit my lower lip and watched Porter as he stood up and walked towards me. He is wearing a gray three-piece Armani suit with a peach necktie. He shook his head and took my hand. "You look really extraordinary," he whispered as he kissed the back of my hand. I smiled at him before letting out a soft giggle. He looks handsome as hell, but I'm not going to tell him that. His ego is already to the roof. Porter and I were staring at each other for longer than we could imagine. That we only broke our eye contact when Elliot cleared his throat. I looked at my cousin, whose brow is raised. He crossed his arms and nodded at Porter. "You know my rules. Bring her home," he said in a serious tone. Porter nodded. "I will, Elliot." He seemed really stiff. I knew he is scared of Elliot because he is my cousin and he feels like he needs to impress him to be able to gain his trust. But then, seeing him this uptight in person makes me want to laugh. Elliot looked at me. "I brought you paper spray." "What?" I cut him off. "Why would you buy me that?" He is so unbelievable. Elliot shrugged and looked at Porter unapologetically. "You know what will happen if you don't abide by my rules," he said and patted Porter's shoulder before going up the stairs. I scoffed at Elliot and was about to throw him my clutch when Porter stopped me. I looked at him and saw him smiling at me. "I'm sorry about him," I told him sadly. He smiled and nodded. "I understand. He's your cousin. If I had a cousin as pure as you are, all hell will break loose once she's hurt." I chuckled and shook my head. "You're just saying that to appease me, right?" I smirked. He shrugged before threading his fingers with mine. "Also, to make you feel a little less nervous. Your hand's sweating," he noted. I shut my eyes, groaned and sighed hard. "Why would you bring it up again? I am starting to forget my inner tension already." He chuckled and pulled me to him as we walked out of the house. I immediately spotted his Aston Martin in front of our gate. He opened the door for me and assisted me to get in. I spent the whole ride nervously listening to the songs on the radio and silently praying that we don't get to the venue just yet. Apparently, my fear of facing Porter's parents is back and is bigger than ever. Porter must have noticed my silence and anxiety rolled into one because he reached for my hand and gave me an assuring squeeze. "My parents are cool, Graciela. They're not really the type to judge people," he told me as if trying to console me. I looked at him and frowned, but that doesn't mean I don't have to impress them. Porter's parents are all for business. I have listened to his story on the beach. He came from a family of business tycoons. He knew running their business is his fate. This is important to him, and although we are not there to attend a business venture, I am still nervous because more or less, business will always be on the topic. Moments later, and we arrive at one of the most prestigious hotels in Chicago, the Emerald Place. I have been here a few times with my parents, but not to attend a party but to dine in the restaurant. They serve really good food. Porter assisted me out of the car. He linked his arm with mine as we walked inside the event room. Security was tight and there were also some media involved. Good thing we weren't seen, so we were not interviewed. The double doors to the hall opened and I was speechless when I saw how grand this birthday party. But then again, we are talking about the blacks here. Luxury is their middle name. "Are you okay?" Porter asked me. He kissed my temple and I nodded. "It's just, wow," I told him. "Sylvia Black is really an icon for luxury." Porter chuckled and hugged me by the waist. They don't have a jewelry chain just for her for nothing. I chuckled and shook my head. Let's go. Porter led me towards a table and my eyes immediately widened when I realized where we are headed to. I could see a middle-aged couple talking to each other and alone in the table. I cannot be mistaken. The middle-aged woman is no other than Hira Black Dunn, and the man beside her is Dimitri Dunn. These are Porter's parents. I swallowed hard and stiffened a little bit as we neared the table. Porter tightened his grip on my waist. It's going to be okay, baby. They will like you. His words seemed to have a power over me because I felt a little relieved. I felt a little more confident about myself. Hiradan turned her head and immediately stood up with arms wide open for Porter. Son! She beamed as she kissed Porter's cheek. I swallowed and bit my lip as she turned to me. You must be Graciela Fuller, she said with a huge grin. My eyes widened in shock. You know me, ma'am? I asked her in disbelief. Hiradan chuckled and then glanced at Porter before looking back at me again. Of course, Porter said, you're his girlfriend. He's told me a lot of good things about you. Heradan's smile and enthusiasm made my heart let out a breath of relief. I smiled back at her. I'm so glad my son has finally found someone to love. All I've ever known is he's very workaholic. So when he told me he's got a girlfriend and he's bringing her here, I pestered him all day just to blurt out the things about you. Mom, please, Porter interrupted. We want to sit. Heradan raised her brow at her son. Dimitri Dan chuckled lowly behind his wife. Your son's right, Hera. Let them have a seat first, he said and then smiled at me. Heradan rolled her eyes at her husband and son before smiling widely at me. Come on and sit, Graciela. I really am excited to talk to you, she said as she pulled me out of Porter's grip and led me towards their table. Porter groaned behind me but then he followed. Heradan leaned closer to me. He's jealous, she whispered and we both giggled. I guess I could get along with Porter's mom just fine, and that's my biggest achievement of the night. Heradan was incessant. She already told me her whole biography, how she and Dimitri Dan met and how they ended up in their fantastic marriage. Those were her words. Porter was just sitting next to me with his hand on my thigh, occasionally squeezing it like he wants to tell me something. I looked at Porter briefly to smile and when I turned back to his mother, she was already glaring at him. I bit my lip and swallowed a chuckle. I want to talk to her, Porter. Why are you interrupting? She asked her son. Porter looked weirded out at his mother. Why are you so obsessed with my girlfriend? He asked back. That earned him another death glare from his mother. Why are you so selfish? I did not raise you to be one kind of a selfish. Enough, honey. Dimitri Dan interrupted and caressed the back of Heradan, whose anger is escalating. Porter rolled his eyes at his mother before leaning to me and kissing my earlobe. Sorry about her, he whispered. I looked at him and chuckled. She's cute for a mom, Porter. You should be proud of your mother. Ha! Heradan scoffed at her son. See? Your girlfriend is better than you. She should have been my child and not you. Porter glared at his mother while Dimitri Dan was just smiling widely and shaking his head. I wonder if this is how Porter and his mom interact at home. It must be very stressful for his father, but this just shows how close their bond is. My parents have been very supportive of me, but I never glare at them, nor roll my eyes at them. They would probably commence corporal punishment even when I'm legal. So seeing Porter and his mom like this actually warms my heart. I love the fact that Porter has a deep relationship with his mom. I have high respects for men who are close to their mothers. And besides, Heradan is so cool. When I first saw his picture, one that Sheila showed me, I thought she was one of those classy and high-up women who looks down on their sons' girlfriends. She looked like a classic painting, the likes of Audrey Hepburn. She isn't the type to be this carefree. When I looked at her, all I could think of is how she is very calculative of her actions and words. I have never expected her to turn out like this. I guess we really can't judge the book by its cover. The program started and everyone formally welcomed the birthday celebrant, Sylvia Black. She's with her husband, Herman Black, looking like a precious gem personified. She's elegance in person and even at her age. Her looks is obviously superior. I can just imagine how beautiful she is when she was in her 20s. Men would have kissed the ground she walked on. Who's that? I pointed at the man who assisted Sylvia Black down the stage. Porter's jaw clenched. Sage. I nodded. That must be Sylvia Black's son. As a matter of fact, looking at him now, I realize how he has some resemblance with Porter. He's tall, has dark brown eyes, a tall nose, and a prominent jaw. I look at Porter to prove my observation, but then I caught him already staring at me with a dark gaze. I blink at him. What? His clenched jaw moved. Why are you staring at Sage? You like him? He asked, mildly gritting his teeth. My lips parted at the sudden intensification of things. I want to laugh at him but I choose not to because he is already angry and I don't want him angrier at me in this event. I am surrounded by his people so I need to behave. I was just looking at him. I don't like him. I stroked his arm and he furrowed his brow at me. I silently groaned. Are you jealous? He scoffed at me but his eyes never left mine. Yes, so? Now I couldn't help myself to not laugh at him. I shook my head as I looked back at him in disbelief. What a jealous boy, I muttered under my breath before leaning closer to him. Why are you jealous? I asked sweetly. I am so glad that his parents left us in the table to greet some friends. I couldn't imagine how Heradan would react when she sees her son this jealous. I could feel his stiffen and somehow I kept a smile to myself. He's going to give in to me anytime soon, so I touched his face. I could almost feel him shiver at my touch. He held my hand, touching his jaw, and removed it. His eyes are still narrowed, but other than the irritation that was evident, I could also see that he softened a bit. I fucking hate that you fucking know how to seduce me and make all my frustration go away, he said in a low voice. I bit my lip and smiled. I am feeling so proud and triumphant but somehow I already know his weakness. He's weak when it comes to my touch and he couldn't resist it. We were in the middle of a staring match when someone called his name. Ah, he muttered a curse as he lazily turned to the direction of the voice that called him. I followed Porter's line of sight and saw three dashing men walking towards us. One of them is Sage Black, whose brows are furrowed like he's mad at the world. The man with ash blonde hair and blue eyes looked at Porter and smiled widely. He gave me a quick glance before giving Porter a knowing smile. Another man with green eyes smirked at Porter. Porter stood up and shook hands with them. I cannot be mistaken. These are his cousins, the notorious quartet of the business world. I don't know their names, but I have heard about them. You've been busy. I never see you around anymore, the man with green eyes asked. The man with blue eyes chuckled. You see how he's busy, Miller. Porter rolled his eyes at them and then nodded at Sage Black, who did the same. He glanced at me and immediately wrapped his arm around my waist. This is Graciela Fowler, my girlfriend, he introduced. I smiled at the three men who stared at me. Porter pointed at the man with green eyes. That's Miller, he said, and then proceeded to the man with blue eyes. Chad, he said, and then stopped. He didn't even bother introducing me to Sage Black. What about me? Sage retaliated. Miller and Chad laughed and shook their heads at Sage before trying to shake my hands only to be blocked by Porter. That earned Porter a boisterous laugh from his cousins. Whip, Chad muttered before looking at me again. Nice to meet you, Graciela. I smiled and replied the same before looking at Miller, who was smirking at Porter. You should spend time with us too. Golfing and the likes, Miller said. I smiled and nodded. That would be good. Not. Porter roared before giving me a sharp look. I bit my lip and didn't speak. Sage Black shook his head. Whip, he uttered. Porter sneered at him. You'll get it from me when you go home crying because the girl you love left you, he mocked. Sage snorted. Not gonna happen, he said, shrugging. Porter smirked. Well, see, fucker, and when that says comes, I would be the first one to tell you I told you so. Miller and Chad chuckled at Porter's silly remarks at Sage. For a while, we stayed at one table and the cousins merrily teased and talked to each other. They all seemed so mature, but their talks were really childish. There was this subject where they were talking about a cartoon or anime that got released this month. I internally shook my head and just quietly listened. Porter must have noticed my silence because he leaned closer and kissed my temple. You're tired? He whispered softly. I smiled and shook my head. I'm good, I told him, but then he already stood up and grabbed my hand. She's tired. We have to go, he told his cousins. The three bachelors stared at us and smirked like they already know what we're doing. I couldn't help but blush at the thought of them thinking that Porter and I are leaving early to have sex. I almost trembled at the thought. The goodbyes were brief. Porter seemed to be so impatient that I only said a few words to his mom and we're already on our way to the exit. When we arrived at Porter's car, he immediately crushed his lips into mine, intoxicating me with his dizzying kisses. He swiped his tongue on my lower lip before sucking it hard. I moaned and he smirked. We really need to go, Graciela. Let's go to our place, he said as he swiftly drove off. Porter and I were making out even when we were still in the elevator. His hands were touching me everywhere and I was already asking him to stay put because I know that there is a CCTV camera inside the lift. Shh, he uttered as he looked so conflicted when he broke away from me. I bit my lip and laced my fingers with him as we both waited for the right floor. He kissed my temple. When the door opened, Porter was running like this is a marathon. We could barely lock the door when we got inside because he already pushed me to the door and on my lips. His hand caressed my jaw as he lifted my face to be able to kiss me even deeper. His tongue delved inside my mouth and I moaned shamelessly. My hands are fested on the side of his coat. trying to remove it every once in a while, but I could not do so as he is so firm on touching my face while he kissed me senseless. I tipped my head to the side as his mouth went to my jaw. "Oh, Porter," I moaned as he kissed me down to my neck, licking me from time to time. I shut my eyes with my mouth in a gape. I know I was being so loud, and I don't really know if Porter prefers me being this expressive, but then I just couldn't be silent when he's doing all these things to me. His hand went to the high slit of my dress and exposed my thigh. He carries the inside of my thigh before reaching the center of my panties. I gasped out loud when I felt his fingers rubbing my soaked underwear. "God," I moaned as I savored every moment his finger did to me. "You're so wet, baby." His voice was like a melody to me. I whimpered and cupped his face just so I could kiss him as hard as he does to me. I sucked on his lower lip and I could already feel his expert hand unzipping my dress. And it because in a one moment, he's already stripped me. My dress fell down to my waist, exposing my breast to him because the dress was padded so I wasn't wearing any bra. His eyes went directly on my boobs before crouching to engulf one to his mouth. He sucked and licked me in every way he wanted, while his other hand is playing with my other breast. I whimpered and moaned under his mercy. My hands are on his head, directing his mouth and his face to suck me even harder. I was in a different state. I was in a state of lust, and all I wanted now is for him to pleasure me in every way he knows. Porter pushed my dress all the way down until it fell on my feet. He slowly went down to kiss my stomach while his hands are already on the waistband of my underwear. He slowly kneeled in front of me and removed the only article of clothing that I am wearing. He parted my legs and caressed my hated core. "What are you I couldn't help but curse when I felt his tongue on my clit. He's already devouring me like he didn't eat any meal today. His tongue sent wonders to my system, and all I could utter was, "Oh God, Porter." I was already losing my mind with the wonders of his tongue when I felt him insert his fingers inside me. He thrusted slowly in and out of me, simultaneous with his tongue action. "Don't stop," I told him as I was already feeling that I was close to orgasm. Porter did not stop. Instead, he moved even more eager to bring me a different kind of ecstasy. He thrusted his fingers even faster while his tongue sucked on my clit until I came on his mouth. He chuckled and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand before getting up and removing his clothes in an instant. When he was done, lifted me and straddled him. "You're so mine, Gracila," he whispered before kissing me hard and deep. My arms are snaked around his neck while I could feel his members seeking entrance into my sleek folds. I moved and rubbed my center against his throbbing member, earning me a groan of frustration from him. "Baby, if you don't stop, I'm gonna f***ing explode," he warned me, but I was more eager to do what I was doing. Porter walked towards the couch and threw me there. My eyes widened when I saw how intense Porter looked as he stood there in front of me with his naked glory. Oh God, how can this man be in love with me? I don't even think I deserve it. His jaw is clenched as he leaned to kiss me. "What do you want me to do?" he asked me through the kiss. I moaned when I felt him flicking his fingers on my core. "Shh, Porter." I was already breathless and I was begging. "What do you want me to do, baby?" he asked me. I was already losing my mind. "Me, please?" He grinned. "How do you want to be Porter is speaking so much. I hate it. I tried to hold his member but he yanked my hands away. Porter, I was frustrated and he's frustrating me more. Baby, I'm gonna give you orgasms all night. Just answer my question, he told me calmly. How can he do this to me and react like this is normal? The last time I checked, I wasn't this needy during. Hell, I only knew what felt like when I met Porter. I never even think of it before but now, every time I am with Porter, I am always expecting that we would have, especially when we were officially together. But he seemed a little laid back when we were already official. He doesn't bring it up that much. Well, not like I want him to bring it up, but then I couldn't even think about Porter without remembering how hot he made me feel. How do you want to be slow, fast, hard? Please, baby. I interrupted him because I couldn't take the talk anymore. Porter's gaze darkened and he kissed me thoroughly and deeply. But this time, his kisses are rugged and more intense than ever. Ones that could make me come by merely kissing. Hard then, he whispered before flipping me. My hands are on the headrest of the couch while my knees are parted. Porter's hand went to my stomach while I could feel his member poking me from behind. This is hard, baby, he whispered before spanking my butt cheek. I shrieked in pain, but then he repeated what he did and somehow I felt better. He rubbed the cheek he spanked before slowly entering me from behind. Porter, I yelled as I felt fuller with him inside me. I felt him more enormous than he was before, and deeper. Oh God, he's deeper this way. He pushed his member hole inside me while spanking me again. Ah, I moaned. This is so good. This feels so much better. Porter massaged my butt before pulling out of me, leaving me very lonely. I was about to beg him again but then I felt him enter me all at once. I gasped and called out his name. Is this hard enough for you? He asked me sweetly. I shook my head. More. I want more. I want him to spank me and make me feel like that again. Porter has successfully corrupted my mind. I could only imagine myself dreaming about this for the next days to come. Damn, his kisses alone made me wet in the middle of the night. How much more once I already dreamed of this one? Porter grunted before thrusting in and out of me really fast. His hands are on my butt cheeks, spanking and massaging them while he dashed out of me. I could feel and hear the couch moving with every push Porter makes. He pushes harder than ever and I'm not really regretting that I asked him to fuck me this way. Most of the time, Porter would make love to me, but tonight is an exception. I want him to do me like he does all those secret girls who are crazy for him. Baby, he groaned. He grabbed my boobs and made me lean against his bare chest while he continued to move inside me. He kissed, licked, and bit my jaw, my neck, and shoulder. He planted kisses on my nape while he took me harder than ever. I heard him exclaim. I moaned and started to move to meet his thrust, and I've never felt this good my entire life. I could feel my muscles contracting, showing that I'm already nearing my climax, and with the way Porter is grunting now, I could feel that he's near too. Porter massaged my breast and pinched my Porter, I was already breathless. I'm close to, baby, he whispered, strained but without stopping. He's not slowing down either. He sucked a sweet spot on my neck while his hands and shaft did me all the wonders. I'm close, baby, he repeated. Do you want me to come inside you? I moaned. Yes. he uttered as I could feel him stiffening. I bit my lower lip and shut my eyes as I came and felt him exploding inside me. We were both panting and tired and sweaty, but I still made myself look at him and smiled. "I love you, Porter," I told him. He smiled and kissed me on the lips. "I love you more, Graciela." Life was more than good. I was happy and I never really thought I would feel this happy again after the death of my parents. "Where are you?" Porter asked me through the phone because we are supposed to meet at the cafe near my school. He purposely called this his rest day so he has all the time in the world for me. Those were his exact words last night. We were also becoming extremely public because most of the people in the office, Uncle Aris included, know that we are dating. Porter even frequents my house now and is slowly getting Elliot's good side. It was fun dating him in public. I would still get annoyed whenever women looked at him like he's a Greek god in real life, but other than that, all is well. "I'm still in the classroom." "Class just ended," I replied. I heard him inhaling a deep breath. "Okay, I'll wait for you here," he said. "All right," I replied, smiling widely. "I love you." I bit my lip to prevent a wider grin from breaking out. I don't want to look like a crazy lady in the corridors of my campus. "I love you too." Porter ended the call and I almost ran towards the cafe we're meeting in. I was always this excited for him. Elliot even said I look like I could not be anything without Porter anymore. But that doesn't stop my excitement. Indeed, Porter was already sitting alone on one of the tables near the window. He's wearing a blue shirt and a faded pair of jeans. His chin is resting on his palms while he lazily looked at the street out the window. I sighed dreamily. Even his side profile is gorgeous. These past few days, I have always been so mesmerized with him. Nothing changed in his physical appearance, but in my eyes, he has gotten 100% more attractive. Even his ruthless aura is turning me on. Porter narrowed his eyes when he spotted me, admiring him from outside. I smiled widely at him and ran inside the cafe like a kid. There are not so many customers right now, so I took this chance to lean in and plant a swift kiss on his lips. He chuckled and grabbed the back of my head, keeping me still for a deep kiss. I broke the kiss and glared at him. He chuckled sexily as he pulled the chair beside me, implying that I should sit there. "Come here," he tapped the chair. I rolled my eyes but still did as I was told. Porter immediately snaked his arm around my waist and pulled me closer to him the moment I sat down. "I miss you," he whispered as he kissed my temple. Sweet, a sweet Porter is always my weakness, although I don't show it to him. Whenever he is clingy and sweet, I act like I am disgusted by his actions when in reality, I am falling for him more. I rolled my eyes. "See? Did you really?" I asked and he nodded fervently. "We met this morning when you drove me to school." He chuckled and kissed my hair. "Is it a sin to miss my girlfriend every moment she's not with me?" I bit my lip. I didn't know what to tell him for that. He seems so into it and I don't want to ruin it for him. And he's so direct that he makes me speechless sometimes. "What did you do a while ago?" I asked him. Porter hummed and pretended to think. "I don't know, really. I just watched random shows in Netflix and pretended you were with me." He winked and I punched his chest lightly, making him laugh at my reaction. I hated when he implies that he's thinking about my body. I mean, it is still awkward for me to think about it. We've had numerous times. Damn, I still can't forget that night he gave me a hard and spanked me. Porter chuckled and buried his face on my neck. I think we should do order, he whispered. I glared at him sideways. Well, I think so too, I replied and started to look at the cafe's menu on the table. What are you getting? He asked. I shrugged. Probably something heavy. I didn't eat this lunch because I was busy finishing the report. Porter furrowed his brows at me. Oops, I think I said the wrong thing this time because he is on his terror Porter Dunn mode. The look that he gives anyone who's giving his or her proposal right now. You didn't eat? He asked me in a stern and low baritone. I shrugged at him and just started to choose from the menu on the table. Porter always has an issue whether I eat or not on time. Most of the time, when we are inside the office, he would give me food or he would drag me out of my office so we could eat. He thinks of food in a huge deal of things. I was busy, and it was just this time, I reasoned. He raised his brow at me. Now, I won't believe you, he uttered. I rolled my eyes and didn't answer. I have been with him for months and I already know when the best time is for me to answer. This time, though, is not a good time for me to answer back because he is still angry. We'd only end up fighting over that petty thing. I'm going to get Walter to give you lunch every single time, he said with finality. I gaped at his words. What? You can't do that. He smirked at me mockingly. Well, apparently, Miss Fuller, I can. I scoffed at him. How could I forget? He is the Porter Alejandro Dan and he can do anything he likes any time. You can't say no to this one, he told me. I can, I retorted. You can't because I won't take no for an answer. I pursed my lips in a thin line and glared at him. I can't believe you. This was just one time. I huffed like a toddler in a huge tantrum. Porter looked at me and watched me act like a kid in front of him. His eyes stayed at me while his jaw is clenching. He would not let this go if I don't continue to do this. I know him. I looked away and pretended to be really pissed. Ah, damn, Gracila. How childish can you go just for Porter to spare you? I am getting mad at myself for doing this, but I know that this is Porter's weakness. I need to continue this or he'd go bringing me lunches every single day like a kid. I could already hear him taking a deep breath. Fine, he breathed. I slowly looked at him and saw how his expression has changed. But I will bring you food if you have a report to finish. I wrinkled my nose but nodded. He's bargaining, so it's a good sign. Fine, Porter sighed. All right then. Let's order and get you something to munch on, he said as we began to seriously look at the menu. Porter dropped me home early tonight because Elliot called me and there was urgency in his voice. My heart immediately boomed, thinking that it has something to do with my parents' death. Elliot was sitting on the couch with a serious expression when I got into the house. He looked at me and immediately stood up. Let's go, he said. I looked at him, confused and nervous at the same time. Where? Police station, he said, and there I already know what this is all about, but not exactly what is happening. I got into Elliot's car without question and he dashed towards the police station. You caught somebody, Elliot started. Somebody? Am I just being paranoid or did he blatantly not tell me that it's the culprit? He was the driver of the van the gunman rode, he continued. He was found to be almost about to escape to Mexico. Escape? Why would he only think of escaping now? I asked. If I were a killer, I would leave town the moment I did the deed. But then, I stopped when it all clicked to me. If I left too early, everyone would suspect me right away. Elliot continued to drive extremely fast and even beat out a red light that we arrived at the police station in just 10 minutes. Investigator Hughes was standing in front of the entrance of the station looking like he's waiting for us. True enough, when he saw Elliot's car, he stood straight and waited for Elliot and I to get out the car. He immediately shook hands with Elliot and told us that the possible accomplice is inside. Elliot looked at me and I nodded. I am so ready for this. I badly wanted this for so long. I want to avenge my parents' deaths because that is why they deserve. We entered the police station and I was called right there and then. I could remember that night. My parents were brought to the hospital but never really got there in time. They were brutally murdered. I remember myself crying for justice, but it cannot be served to me right away because we don't know who to sentence. I was broken and angry and at the same time desperate. But tonight, it might all end tonight. This person might spill all truths tonight. I could finally get the justice that I needed. I can finally achieve my goal. Investigator Hughes led us to the cells and stopped at where a man wearing a black shirt and brown cargo pants. He lifted his head and I already felt the anger rushing in. I clenched my fist and was about to shout at him when he ran towards us and yelled, "It's Aris Fuller! Aris Fuller is the mastermind. He paid all of us to kill his brother and his brother's wife so he could take over the company. He did it. He did it. Let me out. Let me out." Elliot looked at me and I shook my head. I took a step back, but I don't feel my feet. No, I shook my head. "It can't be, right?" I asked Elliot, but he only stares at me, also shocked. I shook my head. "No," I yelled at the man. "I am not lying. He paid for us. He paid us $50,000 each just so we could kill the owner of Grayson Airlines," he retorted. Tears brimmed around my eyes and sobs started to come out. Elliot wrapped me with his arms and hugged me tight. "He's lying," I cried. "How could Uncle Aris do that? He's lying. This man is lying."